Welcome, poultry enthusiasts, to another exciting episode of the Poultry Nerds podcast.
Whether you're raising backyard chicken, diving deep into the science of avian health, or just obsessed with all things feathers and eggs, you're in the right place.
I'm Carey.
And I'm Jennifer. We're your hosts.
Your host. Today,
Go for it.
we've got an episode packed with everything you need to know to define all the terms. What is it called?
From expert tips to fascinating facts, we're here to help you become the ultimate poultry pro. It's time to get nerdy about poultry. Okay, so just for context, we have been sitting here talking for 15 minutes and forgot to hit record. So that is why we're laughing and a little out of sync. So it occurred to me the other night that a lot of people don't know what some of these common terms are, what we're talking about. So we thought we'd explain them all.
And that is the thing, because especially when you're in some of the poultry groups, people, and like they're in the South, we just say bless their heart.
Terminology is super important.
Yeah.
Because you can't say you have a hen in a brooder. That's not the right terminology. So if you're asking
because
for
then
hen,
you would be like roasting a chicken or poaching eggs or whatever.
So when you need help or you're filling out show forms or talking to a breeder, using the right terminology is important so you don't tell somebody that you're doing something and you're using the wrong words. Did I say that right?
Yeah. Because people do it. So
yeah,
today we figured we will explain what is meant when someone says a chick. We're not talking about the girl in the bikini at the beach. That is we're talking about what actually should be in the brooder. The wee little chick. The young, let's see, I would consider anything up to 4 weeks, 5 weeks at least as a chick.
Yeah, sexable.
Yeah.
Before they're sexable.
Until you can figure out what they are. And that would be breed specific, because some of them it would be closer to maybe 6 or 8 weeks. Because like on a Pharaoh quail, you would consider that a chick for like week 3. But an Orpington, I don't know. How long would you consider that a chick?
Probably 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah.
But you could still call them, even if they were sexable, you could still call them a pullet or a cockerel.
Yeah, because that covers anything under a year old is what I've always, if it's under a year old, then it's safe to call it a pullet or a cockerel or whatever.
All right, you're getting ahead on our outline. So chick would be chicken or quail.
Yep, babies.
That's right.
That's them babies.
And a duckling. Duckling, that's pretty obvious. That's a duck. A poult is for a turkey, a baby turkey. It's not a chick. It's a poult. Poult. And then gosling, that's a goose.
Yeah.
And here's the biggest pet peeve for me. Birds are hatched. They're not born. They're hatched.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay, now.
That's when you see a lot too.
Okay. You do a lot.
And I'm just like, I love you, but they're hatched.
Okay, so now we're on to the pullet cockerel conversation. So a pullet would be a young female.
Yep.
And we're talking about chickens, quail. Yeah, maybe quail. And that's it. So
I don't know. Like to me, I don't think a quail really hits the pullet stage, because them suckers, they go from like chicks to laying eggs. Maybe a Bob White are one of the ones that take longer to mature, but
so just a female.
Yeah. That would just be a hen because
Yeah.
they're quick.
Yeah. Okay, so if you're filling out a show card, a pullet would be one that's under a year old.
Yep.
And if you are just talking slang out in the yard, a pullet would be one that hasn't laid eggs yet.
It's, when you say hasn't laid eggs yet, a lot of times by the time they're 6 to 8 months old, they've laid an egg, but they're still a pullet, not a hen because they're not over a year old. So it's like, what do you, I don't know. That can be confusing.
That's why I said backyard. That's why I said.
Yep. Backyard.
Okay. So a cockerel would be a young male.
Right.
And if you're doing a show card, it's denoted by the letter K, and it's one that's under a year old.
Right.
A cock is a rooster, over a year old, male, whatever you want to call
Fully
it.
mature.
Chicken,
Ready
quail.
to go.
Yep.
Looking for love in all the places.
Hen, that's going to be a female over a year. And that is going to include your chicken, your quail, your turkey, your duck.
That's, yeah. And see, that's one of the things that's confusing to me. And I can understand how people can be confused because it's like, okay, you've got a hen and you've got a duck, but the males are called drakes, not roosters. I can understand why with ducks and geese, people could get confused because the terminology is not as common.
You
So
know
that's
what?
why
And
we're here.
I forgot to add to the list is Jake and Tom.
Oh, yeah.
Jake is a young turkey male, and a Tom is a mature turkey. So Drake would be a duck male, and
Right.
a gander would be a male goose. Right?
Yeah.
All right,
And
next
you know,
category.
you hear the word gander in some old nursery rhymes too.
All right, my next category on my little list we've got going here. Okay, so sexed birds are the opposite of straight run.
Which should be,
they're just mixed up.
that should be a thing. But I see so many people complaining, oh, I ordered straight run birds and I got all roosters except for 2. I'm like, well, unfortunately, that is what, in a lot of situations, how the luck usually works and what comes out of the hatcher. Saying, especially when you need a lot of hens, you're going to get a lot of roosters. That's one of the reasons why autosex is a thing. And sex link.
So sex birds would be just that. We can tell male from female. You can vent sex. Quail, vent sexing, they have to be sexually mature. If you're trying to do chicken chick or ducks or turkeys, in all likelihood, you cannot. Those are trained professionals that vent sex at the hatcheries. So you can damage a bird. Please don't try. Just let it be gender reveal in 6 to 8 weeks.
Yeah, because I've watched a lot of YouTube videos to try to figure that out. And once you see it, but it's like a very fine line as to how much you squeeze the bird being too much. And if those insides pop out, you now have a cull, even if you didn't want it. Yeah, leave it alone. Let it be a surprise. Like a box of chocolate.
Sex linked, that just means that the genetic are manipulated, usually color genetics, or manipulated in such a way that they're sexable at hatch. And we did a podcast about that, probably March of 25, I would say, maybe February 25. We did a podcast.
It was March the 13th was hen or rooster. How to tell the difference.
Yeah, but we did one with Gina. Sex linked.
Oh, yeah. Sex linked with Gina. That was, yeah, that was February the 20th.
Yep. Okay. So next up on my categories here, we have litter. Litter is like used bedding essentially at the bottom of the coop, right?
That's not what a cat has. We're talking about
I mean,
farm
I guess it
animals.
could be farm animals. I guess it could be fresh litter. Bedding is more like you bedded the nest boxes or you bedded the brooders or
What kind of
what
bedding do
kind.
you use? Do you use straw or what do you put in
I use dirt.
your
Use
nest
dirt,
boxes?
330. What a god.
Look, some people try to overthink their nest boxes and get extremely fancy with them. And what I have found for a lot of birds, regardless of the size, that a 12 to 14 inch opening sitting on the ground, much like the size of a milk crate, with something soft in the bottom, they will lay eggs. Whether it is a game bird, a large fowl, or a turkey.
My turkey lay all over the place. I have to go Easter egg hunting in the runs.
So in the coop that I have mine in, I've got 4 hens in there, and they are all very particular to one corner. And I just put a milk crate right there with some peat moss. And people are like, that's too big for a turkey. Or not big enough for a turkey, but Frank Reese said himself he uses 12-inch by 12-inch box with an open top sitting on the ground. That's what all of his lay in.
I have tried everything. I've had turkeys for years, and I've tried everything, and mine just want to lay on the ground. They're like my ducks. So when I'm driving across the field in the gator, we play hit the duck egg because they're literally just everywhere, and you don't know how old they are. And that's why I have to pin my ducks up this time of year to get
You hatch some.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because the ones that when the grandkids come over and they're like, bring me these duck eggs, I'm like, where'd you get that? Was it in the pen or out of the pen? It was out of the pen, Grandma. Okay, be very careful with.
Yeah. When you throw that, be very careful. Because that is like Easter egg hunting nightmares all over again.
For the weekend, and I'm throwing them in the pond.
Yeah, because how many times, and this happened to me as a kid, we have Easter, boil eggs, all that good stuff. I was cutting grass, so picture that like a month or so later, and I found an egg. That was rough, really rough. Like I stopped right where I was struggling. It was tough. So try to get your birds to lay in some area. Yeah.
Yeah.
Grit. That's a term. Huh? Roost? Oh yeah, roost.
Roost.
A roost.
I use 2x4s.
That's anything from a really big tree limb to a 2x4 or 2x6, depending on how big the birds are. Turkeys 2x6s. Like in one of my pens, I thought I was going to be creative and be like, do something really cool to make it like the real. So I got some small trees that I cut down and I was using those for roost. And now I make sawhorses, different sizes. I've got some sawhorses that are a foot tall. I have some that are a foot and a half. And I have one set that's 6 feet tall because game birds would fly 30 feet up in the air if you had their thing tall enough. They would love it. But like for my turkeys, I built 2 of them put in there that were like 3 feet wide and they're 2 feet tall. And it's great because at night, when I need to go in there and check on them and give them a good feel down the keel bone and down their backbone and see how things are going, getting time for breeding season and thinking in the back of my mind which one's going to be Thanksgiving. When they're 2 feet off the ground, you just go in there because they're like blind at night. So
they are.
it worked.
They are. Yeah, you never want to put a turkey roost over your head because if you go in there and have to get them,
You're not going to.
Mine are 4 feet off the ground. Yeah. So I used the 2x4. I also use 2x8s for the turkeys. And my highest roost is the turkey, and it is 4 feet. Everybody else is 2 feet off the ground.
You don't want them to hurt yourself getting off.
Yep. All right. Now you can talk about grits. You're like your favorite subject.
So grit, that is rocks. A lot of people want to say oyster shell is grit because it's hard, but it breaks. Grit's rock.
It is. Now somebody did text me not too long ago and asked me the difference between oyster shell and granite grit. And I just told them that oyster shell is going to wear out faster.
Yeah, because it's calcium and it dissolves. And granite will in a few thousand years.
We'll be right back.
Looking to rock some seriously comfy gear? If you love chickens and you're all about that fun style, then Chicken Box has got the perfect t-shirts for you. From quirky designs to classic looks, their shirts are as comfy as us chicken tenders deserve. They even have a subscription service so your coop doesn't get bored. Head over to PoultryNerdsPodcast.com and click on Chicken Box to get your comfy shirts and support the podcast.
So if we pull up fossils of turkeys, they'll have granite in them?
Nah, because back then they probably wasn't smart enough to give it to them to get their feed conversion ratio up by 20%. Chicken wire. Chicken wire is a thing. That's that octagonal stuff that comes with those $200 coops that you buy off of Amazon that is really great for keeping your chickens in, but it's not great for keeping anything out. Yeah, it's not great for keeping anything out. So, like, if you live in suburbia and you have a fenced-in backyard, then you're going to be good with that. But if you live anywhere outside of that, you're setting up a buffet, which comes to one of the other things that we have on here, hardware cloth. That's the stuff that's really stiff. Yeah, no. That's the stuff that's really stiff. It's usually like 16, 18, 20 gauge thick. It's welded together. I would highly suggest wearing gloves when you handle it because that crap will slice you with a quickness.
Yeah. You will almost always get one up underneath your fingernail.
Yes. It's right there for y'all that can see that. Like I still have a black spot on my finger in the middle. So that's a thing way better than the chicken wire. But still, it's not predator proof. But it's like putting forth some effort.
Yeah. And you can get it in different sizes. You can get 1/4 inch squares, 1/2 inch squares, 3/4 inch squares.
I've even seen some 1/2 by 1. 1/2 by 1 is really good if you're making a quail cage for the bottom. But I would not, I can't think of a reason why you would use the 1/4 inch other than that's all you had access to. Or maybe if it was less expensive. No. In some of my pens, some of my breeding pens that I have are dog kennels that were converted. And I have 1/2 by 1/2, this 24 inches wide around the bottom. Because chickens are dumb. They'll stick their head out. And
out here that will take my head off.
The chicken wire, they can fit their head through that. They can't the hardware cloth.
And then you can get hardware cloth coated or non-coated. Just be aware that non-coated will rust over time. And it is not good for feet. So always get coated hardware cloth if you're going to put a bird on it. But for just like the walls or the top, uncoated is fine. Save your money. And then netting. Oh,
But you
relationship
love some
netting.
wet netting. You love it.
So I have to tell you a story. You ready? And I wish
Ready.
I found it and I haven't seen it in a while. So I bought the cheap stuff off of the Zon, right? Back when I first built the runs and stuff, I bought the $20 pack and it would get you like 100 feet of netting.
Which
Somebody
that's a
had
lot.
actually Somebody had written a review and I bought it just because of the review. So funny. But she said, first of all, don't do netting with your spouse and tie one corner to the mirror of the car and another corner to the neighbor's fence and another corner to your house. And then it's still going to be the shape of a diamond and you'll never get it up. So just wad it up and throw it away. And don't ask your friends to help you either because they'll never come over again to help you. All true statements. I would never let David help me with the netting. And one of my kids actually put it up. And I went up there to check on him to see if he needed my help. And he stopped and he looked at me. Now, he's like 30. And he looks at me and he goes, I need you to walk away. Do not turn around. Do not look at me again. I just need you to walk away and I will let you know when I'm done. We get it all up and one sparrow flies into it. Big gaping hole. So do not buy the $20 stuff. Just save your $20.
I was going to say, one of the things when I said something about building a large run out of the 2x4 wire, I don't think I'm skipping over anything. No. Like the 2x4 wire, you said, don't get the cheap stuff. Go straight to, what is that company?
It's rope netting.
Yeah, what is it? What is the company that sells that?
It's a couple of them. I got mine from Pennon, but
Yeah, they're.
make
But
sure
get
it's
the kind that's like rope, because the nylon stuff, yeah, there might be divorces that have happened because of that.
Yeah. Hire a complete stranger from the corner to come help you put it on.
Yeah, there you go. And pay them when you finish, because that's tough. But it's very handy because it still lets the sun in, which they need, but it will also keep hawks out. Yeah.
And it's very heavy.
What about feed? Feed to me should be self-explanatory. Starters,
Confused over the word.
kind of a starter. Then you
It's
give them a grower to make them grow. You give them a layer when they start laying. But what's a conditioner feed for?
Ages. People want ages. They want to know that you give them layer feed at 16 weeks.
No.
No.
I will say that a lot of times if you look at a feed tag, it should have a suggested age on it. There you go. Like layers 26 weeks and up.
Layers layer feeds for layers.
I was going to say, if you give a chicken layer feed, it will not start laying. But when it starts laying, you probably should give it layer feed or like a developer feed with what we mentioned earlier, oyster shells.
Oyster shells. Okay, I'm going to let you digress for 1 minute because we need to dispel a myth. Can the males, the roosters, the cockerel, eat layer food?
I hope so, because mine do.
Yes, so do mine. They haven't keeled over yet.
A lot of calcium. Yeah. Is it going to kill them? No.
Because you're only feeding it to them while they're laying. The rest of the time, they're going by milk.
Yeah. on a developer or conditioner. Not a starter because they're beyond starter. And if they're already
Gosling.
mature, they're past the grower. Yeah, kick them with an off log, something. Good. Yeah, do it.
All right, what else we got here? Okay, next section
Brooders.
of terminology, brooders.
That's where you put your
Let's get
hens.
baby. Speak with the chick.
Yeah, okay.
Or the ducklings or the poult.
Or the goslings.
Gosling.
Okay.
I saying it.
I like that word
Okay.
too. It's fun.
The grow
What
out
about-
time.
Yeah. So that's where your cockerels and pullets go.
Sure. Still protected. Still a little bit confined. Protected from the elements if you're brooding in the wintertime. But not necessarily on heat anymore.
Yeah, no. And the coop, that's where they lay eggs. That's where
And
they go to
nestled.
sleep. That's where they roost.
And everybody
Yeah,
looks
in the run. They don't do that in the run, do they? They run around in the run.
Sometimes mine lay eggs in the run.
That is true. But
Now, runs are attached to the coops because you're not
Yep.
free ranging.
that's another thing. Free range. Free range is when there's no real fence. Now, to me, technically, I consider if you've got one of those net fencing thing around and you've got a bunch of chickens and you're moving from one section of pasture to another, that's still technically free ranging. But free ranging is when you're out there because
That
that
would be-
net's not stopping a whole lot.
No. So you want to hear a funny story? So our last house did not have any fencing. And so I told David we needed to fence. And he didn't want to because we lived on a sheet of rock. And so we went out there and we stretched fence tree to tree and stapled it to the tree on the property line. And the entire
Works.
time is busting up a storm. I'm like, what is wrong with you? And we're talking, this was a 2-acre lot. So let's just say we're fencing an acre here. And I'm like, what is wrong with you? Why have we got such attitude about putting this fence up? And he goes, because you want to fence birds, creatures that have wings and can fly. And you think putting up a 4-foot fence is going to hold these birds in. The only thing that ever got out was stupid guineas, which we forgot. Those are called keets, by the way, the babies are. But stupid guineas would go over and then stand right up against the fence and scream bloody murder because they couldn't figure out how to get back.
At least they knew where they were supposed to come back to.
Guineas are like boats. They're great the day you buy them, and then they're great the day you get rid of them.
Two best times involve a transaction. Yeah, I have a really bad predator problem, and I thought seriously about getting them just for that. But I can't. I would probably wind up madder at them than the raccoons that I get.
So I have another guinea story. So a couple 3 years ago, I sold a ton of keets, like as fast as I could hatch them, selling them. And we have a lot of Western state transplants here in Tennessee. And they didn't like the ticks or the bugs in their yard. And they would go online to the fake book and they would be told they need guineas. And I know when somebody was pulling their leg because they would come here and they would have 5 acres and they wanted 20 guineas. And they were adamant that they needed 20 guineas. So I would sell them 20. But then sometimes people would come and they'd be like, how many do you really think I need? Oh, what's that? No, maybe start with 5 or 6 and go from there. And 100% of the time, the people who bought the 20 or 25 guineas from me would call me a few months later and go, hey, do you need some of these back?
For biosecurity reasons, I do not take any birds back. And once they leave, they stay gone. I can connect you with a local resource that will help you butcher it.
The first rule of sales is if somebody is committed to what they want, you don't try to talk them out of it.
No, you don't.
Nope. You just let it go. Okay. Oh, aviary. We forgot aviary. That's just
Yeah, that's like
a
a big open area that they can fly in.
A lot of people keep their quail that way.
Yep. Broody. That is the useful purpose of a silkie. That is when a hen wants to sit on her eggs and hatch them.
And you won't mistake her for just wanting to sit there. They somehow contort all the bones into their bodies to flat pancakes and cover all of the eggs. And they hiss and bark and bite at you if you touch them. Some of them bite pretty hard.
But a broody hen is nature's incubator.
Yes. Yes. Okay, an incubator would be where you want to put your eggs without a broody hen in order to have them grow to chicks or keets or goslings.
And where would you get those eggs? Hopefully,
The nest
out of a
box,
nest box.
a clean one
Yes.
where they haven't been sleeping in it.
So I have this game chicken hen. She's a hen. And she will, I kept noticing like she would wait on her particular box to open up. So I thought, hey, that's a pretty good, she wants to make sure it goes in the box. So I started putting her in pens with my grow outs. And they would see her going in and lay their eggs, and it worked. Because all the hens that were in that grow out, it's like they won't lay an egg unless they're inside the nest box. Nice.
No more dirty eggs, huh? All right. And then to cull flames to remove the bird from the coop, from the breeding program, from the brooder, from the earth.
And it doesn't necessarily mean, a lot of people think, oh, if you're culling it, you're unaliving it. But that doesn't mean that. Culling it is removing it from your program, period. Regardless of whether it's the crock pot method, the person down the road that wants some chickens method, whatever method you go with.
Yeah.
What's a comb? That you run through your hair?
Yeah. It's the big red thing on top of their heads. I've seen a lot of people try to describe it and didn't know what the term was. So the comb is on top of their heads. And the wattles are on the bottom of their heads. Underneath.
So the comb is like their hair and the wattles is like their beard.
Exactly. The
beak is that thing they eat with?
And the bill too. But that would be for goslings. Gosling and duck.
Pullet eggs, that is a smaller egg from a hen that is young.
From a pullet.
From a pullet.
But
that you should not incubate.
They could be double yolkers too. They're just going to be all over the... Usually, okay, you're right. Pullet eggs we describe as the small ones. But pullets can lay eggs that are all over the spectrum of size.
Yeah, if you got too much protein going to them, a lot of times they will lay bigger eggs.
All right, image.
That's the hackle feathers and the sickle feathers, and the tail feathers and the wing feathers. And
so the hackle feathers and the sickle feathers are what makes a rooster pretty.
Yes. This past weekend, I was at a show in South Carolina, and I saw this rooster whose hackle feathers literally looked like a sunburst. Like it was a really pretty bird. Yeah.
All right. The SOP was written by the APA
Kinda. We won't go down that road.
in conference with the clubs. Did that? Yeah, that explained everything, didn't it?
That would be the standard of perfection,
Yeah.
as
Standard-
according to the American Poultry Association.
Or the American Bantam Association.
They have one. That's the ABA, American Bantam Association.
And then you have breed clubs. Not all breeds have clubs, but the more popular ones do.
Yeah.
And they just are a group of people like the Orpington Club or the Cochins International. We have a list.
They love that bird.
We have a list of the breed clubs on our website. Did you know that I put that there?
I saw.
Okay, cool.
The listeners should check it out. Make
Now-
sure they become a part of their favorite breed club to help support it.
Yep. Now, the SOP is copyrighted by the APA. You cannot get that description anywhere but buying the book from the APA on their website.
Yep. You take a picture of it and post it, and they will send you a nasty. So don't do it. And it's a protected thing, so I get it. But don't do it.
All right.
And I did hear that they are going through the final stages of releasing a new version that's had been corrected.
And did you know the first 33 pages included in the first 33 pages is a dictionary with a whole lot more terms in it?
There's a lot of them in there.
There is pages and pages of them.
Yep.
So these are just the highlights that we come across every day. People asking me on the website or whatnot. And we thought we would just,
See if we can clear that up.
there you go. And
Help y'all
I
out.
hope it was fun for everybody else. It was fun for us.
Yep. I enjoyed it.
All right.
So we will
Talk to-
talk to y'all later.
Bye.